Greetings and salutations. This is Rick Copple with another episode of Not Who Got Channel. Welcome back. And today we're going to look at the top 5 reasons why I switched from Windows to Linux today. So let's get right to it. Now there's a couple of things we mentioned on the top 5 reasons why I switched from Windows to Linux. Other people are going to have other reasons or same ones, maybe different orders, that kind of thing. So these are the top reasons why I switched from Windows to Linux. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to, or you wouldn't want to, maybe for all I know. These are the top 5 reasons why I switched from Windows to Linux. And also I wanted to mention that the difference between number 1 reason, number 5 reason is not a lot of space between those reasons. Most of these are pretty close together in reasons. There's sort of order that I think they're priorities, but for me. But I don't know that there's a lot of space between number 5 and number 1 in that regard. So keep that in mind as we go through this. These are my top 5 reasons why I switched from Windows to Linux. Reason number 5 is it's free and open source software, as in anyone can look at the code. Now, free and open source software has been around since the 90s pretty much, give or take a few years there. And then I mean, you can look at the code. Anybody can look at the code on any free and open source software. FOSS, as they call it. Yeah, you can compile it from code if you want. You can make changes to programs, modify it, whatever, and compile it back yourself, as long as you follow the licensing in it. It usually says you have to retain a license with it, the software, so that other people can use it, and you have to be willing to share and keep it open source. So it's a big belief in the Linux community, because Linux itself is open source code. The kernel is open source. So you have all these millions of people looking at the code, contributing to it. So this actually bleeds over into the next reason, number 4, is because you have to understand what the open source means for you to be able to understand the next part adequately, which is number 4 is security, security, security. Yeah, a lot of people like Linux because it is such a secure system. That by time fast. I mean, you have a whole world looking at the code on something. You got a whole lot more eyes on the ball than you do otherwise. Some people say, well, it's open source, so I mean anybody can insert anything in there they want, any viruses, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and all the people can take them right back out too. And they usually do, they watch your code. It doesn't mean things don't get in occasionally, because any software is going to have that issue. It's a more secure system. Now some people are going to say, well, what about that 5-year backdoor entrance into Linux? That there was a vulnerability for 5 years and nobody saw it. That's true, there are issues like that, but they're far and few in between compared to Windows, which is like riddled with holes. And if you think about it, it makes sense, because if you have this little office of people over here in Seattle, Washington, looking at code, compared to the whole world, millions of people all over the world looking at code, who is more likely to find stuff that's insecurities or faster, and patch it faster? All millions of people around the world. So yeah, the community really helps to keep it secure, making what everybody wants it to be, which is a secure system. And they really have a lot of reasons to do that, because of all the servers and everything that run on Linux, all the stuff runs on Linux. You'd be surprised at how much stuff runs on Linux in this world. 95% of the servers in this world run on Linux, which is another reason why the old adage that, well, fire hackers don't attack Linux because it's not all that popular. Nope. It's not true. 95% of the world's servers run on Linux. Now, it's only got about, I think, 10% or 8% or some of the desktops in the world, but run on Linux. But 95% of servers run on Linux. Base station runs on Linux. I've heard other things. Android runs on Linux kernel. All these various functions and features depend on Linux kernel work. A lot of your household appliances, if they are smart at all, they usually run Linux most of the time. So, yeah, my son who's in security, part of his job is to learn Linux because of so many servers run on Linux. You have all this stuff that runs on Linux, so people naturally are going to try and hack it. I mean, if you want to hack into a database at a big company, chances are you're going to have to know Linux to do it. But there's a reason why most servers are 95% of servers run on Linux because it's so secure. Occasionally, like any software, you're going to have vulnerability you discover, stuff like that. But it's so much quicker when you have all these eyes looking on it all the time. People see things, aha! Occasionally, something will slip by for a year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever, however long. But if it was that obscure and that hard to find for all the people all over the world, probably other reasons why I can statewide Linux so secure. But I don't even run antivirus software on my computers because I don't really need to. Most Linux distributions don't run any antivirus. You can put it on there, some available, but most don't run any antivirus software because most people know how to keep their system secure. One thing you can do to help keep your system secure is if you have SSH server installed on Open Server installed on your computer, then you want to change your port number. Because there's a default port number that most hackers will know about. And if you don't change it so your root isn't allowed to log in, then they can log in. They can figure out what your password is, which is not too hard these days. Yeah, they can log into your system through SSH if they know about it or find out about it or whatever. People pinging every day all around the web trying to find open ports like that. They can get in the system, see what they can find and what they can do. Yeah, so you have to know to change your port number and to change those settings. And I mean, anything's going to be as secure as you make it out to be for the most part, but Windows is riddled with security issues all the time. And it's because they have a limited number of people looking at the code on it all the time, trying to find security vulnerabilities. So yeah, security number 4 now. Number 3 reason is it gave me a sense of adventure. Yeah, adventure in the sense that I've always gotten a sense of fulfillment out of seeing something I created work. Always almost felt like Frankenstein, where he's creating work. It's alive, it's alive, it's alive! I've created a monster. Yeah, whenever I would type in code and then run it and it worked, or if I've been trying to work on code that I've been trying to get something to work for a long time and it worked, there's such a sense of fulfillment out of that made me go, wow, I created something that I made work off of whatever rules I was given to work with. And there's that sense of adventure that I had like in the days when I was working on MS-DOS, where I was trying to get stuff to do backflips that it wasn't really designed to do out of the box. But every time I was able to get to do something I wanted to do, it was like, wow, yes, cool, excellent. Yeah, I kind of lost some of that over the years, and then I came to Linux, and it was like all this new stuff I could learn. I can make Linux is really uh, tinker's dream in that regard. I like to tinker some, not a lot, but I like to tinker some, and I like to make things work. So. Gave me a sense of adventure. Reason number 2. The OS doesn't control me. I control the OS. Yeah, I mean, Windows have started becoming more and more proprietary. Fewer options I can choose. Yeah, they provide some theming, some basic stuff like that to a certain degree. Make it sort of look like you want to look. You had options, but I mean, sky's the limit with Linux. I mean, I can switch out kernels. Can't do that in Windows. I could put whatever desktop environment I wanted on it. Can't do that in Windows. There's one desktop environment, that's Windows desktop environment. Can't switch out and go get Windows 5.0 desktop environment. You can't switch back to, say, you like the XP Windows environment. You can't really switch back to that very easily. Not allowed, not allowed. You actually have to have XP to run XP. And you're stuck with that Windows environment. Do whatever you want on it, Window Tiling Manager, whatever you want on it. Operate your system with. And there's just so much you can do, it's just infinite number. That's why there's so many options on distros, because everybody has their own spin on what they think they like. So you only have one Linux kernel basically, but you have several versions of Linux kernels. You have several versions of desktop environments or window managers you can install. You have several display managers you can install. You have several programs, all sorts of programs you can put on there, however you want to do it. So like on image viewers, I have several different options. I can install this, that, other thing. There's other things that factor into that too, like your updates. You can tell it when you want to update instead of it telling you when you're going to update. Or reboot your computer, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't force you to do that. So you can go years without updating if you so desire. Wouldn't recommend it, but you can do it. Some people do, unfortunately. So. But the OS doesn't control me, I control the OS. And that's a key important thing I liked about Linux. Yeah, so reason number 2 now. First reason why I switched to Linux is it's free, as in no money needed. In about 98% of cases, give or take. When I say no money needed, I mean is upfront money. Because you can always make donations, and you should. If you like a distribution, you want to support it and keep it going. You want to make sure it's there for continued updates and that kind of thing. And just a general use, if you use something, you should pay for it, as much as you can. There's a lot of them that don't even have a donation button on their side or nothing like that. So yeah, one of the reasons I didn't like that concept initially was because one, I didn't have a lot of money, wasn't rich, I didn't have money to spend on all the software all the time. And two, second reason why, because I like to be able to install things, test them out, try them out before I actually donate or give money to someone, and do that with this kind of thing. So I always got all these programs. Even when I was on Windows, I got a lot of free and open source software because I liked it. And most of it was pretty good. The stuff I got. I mean, GIMP's a pretty good replacement for Adobe. Yeah, in most of those cases, you can get all the stuff for free right up front. And fully functional programs, if you want to, you don't ever have to pay a cent for them. Just download and use them. Free and open source software. Because it's free. Initially wanted it because I'd gotten some free and open source software on Windows. Well, I was used to it, so I thought, I could switch over to operating systems, also free and open source. Pretty easy at this point. The only thing that held me back was QuickBooks. I couldn't get it to run on Wine. Couldn't get it to run on anything. I tried a couple of times back in the 2009, I think it was, around that time period. Yeah, so it's like I was tired of all of having to pay all the money for software and stuff like that all the time, even for updates. It's like with QuickBooks, like I said mentioned before, every year they put out a new update of QuickBooks, and every year they want to install. Now, what I did was I installed every other year, usually a new update, unless there's certain features that I really wanted or something like that. And they try to entice us. Some of them were pretty lame though, but yeah, so it's another $200 every year they wanted you to spend on it. A lot of money. But it's the free open source software. Now some of the software you can get on Linux isn't as good as the original. Like I got GNU Cache, which is very good and functional open source accounting program used for personal business or you can use for business. So yeah, you go into that, you can, but one of the things it didn't have was inventory. And when I was looking, that's the main thing that held me back from switching to Linux back in the day. I was trying to find a good solution for QuickBooks. And I developed some spreadsheets that I had to run payroll because you can't do that automatically out of GNU Cache like you can out of QuickBooks. It also doesn't cost you anything. You have to pay all this money every year to have your payroll subscriptions updated so it automatically updates your tax for you. So I wanted to be able to do that myself, which I created spreadsheets to do all that, calculate payroll, all that kind of good stuff. So I wanted to get away from all the need to update and pay money out for everything all the time. Do that, do a little more manual entry and that kind of thing, but it worked. And I was able to develop inventory spreadsheets and payroll spreadsheets to do all the calculations for numbers I enter into my accounting program. So it worked. Yay. And I didn't have to pay for any of that except for my time. Which I had a little more of that than I had money at the time, so I could do that kind of thing. So anyway, it's free, there's no money needed. The number one reason why I switched to Linux, and as I did before, you got a bonus one, and it's reason number 0 in the interest of binary people. Software installing and upgrading is really simple. Now that's easy to note. I mean, I didn't know about it at the time when I switched to Linux that much. I didn't really learn about package managers and all that stuff until I got into Linux. So it wasn't the reason I switched to Linux, but it's one of the reasons a lot of people do mention when they switch to Linux. And it's also something I really like about it. I mean, all you do if you want to install software is type in a little line of code, hit enter, boom. Or you can go to use a graphical in most cases. Most desktop environments have a graphical user interface you can use. Like Pop! OS has a Pop! Shop, pretty good, and everyone will have their own version of that. And you can get your software through there, or you can, and upgrading it tells you when there's upgrades available for all your software. But like I say, you control when to do updates. You tell it, okay, I'm ready to update. I'm ready to. Most time you don't have to reboot. That's a big plus for Windows users, isn't it? Firewall is watching 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%. Nah, you don't have to do that in Linux. You just say, you just run your upgrades. It upgrades all your software in one batch, all your security systems, every piece of software on your system that you run through repositories, you download through repositories. You got all that set up. It automatically upgrades all that stuff like that. Simple. And most time you don't even have to reboot. Usually if it installs a new kernel, you need to reboot to activate the new kernel, that kind of thing. But other than that, you usually don't have to reboot to initiate installations. So that's reason number 0. Software installing and upgrading is really, really simple and easy. And that alone is worth all the price of Linux. And time, effort we put into it. And it's been an exciting journey. I've loved it. I encourage anybody who really wants to dig into Linux to do so. And just start learning. Download your first distro, install it on an old laptop you got laying around or something like that. Or a virtual machine if you need to. And go to town, learn it. So that's how I learned it pretty much. Through the School of Hard Knocks. And you can too if you have a mind to. Now, is it for everyone? No. Certain people are going to want to switch from Windows to Linux because either they're just really, really comfortable with the Windows machine and know it inside and out. They really don't have a care or concern. I mean, they're not concerned about all the vulnerabilities and the system updates and updating when they want you to. And so the backdoors that the developers put into it, you're not worried about all that. Stay there. You just want something that runs. I mean, you can get that out of Linux usually. You have to learn a few things along the way, but you can usually get something that operates out of the box how you want it to. It takes a little effort. If you don't want to put the effort into it, then stay with Windows. That's all I can tell you. But if you have any concerns I have, or have any of these reasons appeal to you, then I want to check into Linux and see if it's worth your time to learn. It's a good system, and I'm really glad I did it. The main reasons I switched from Windows to Linux was that Windows, the longer it sat on the system, the slower and slower it seemed to get. And you always had to buy a new system or upgrade. It's almost like a built-in feature. Whereas on Linux, things just worked. They always stayed as fast as they installed it, for the most part. There are some systems you get, as some people call rusty. That happens after years and years of use. On one OS, you can, like the first OS I installed, first distribution I installed was Ubuntu. I ran that for like several years. It was just as fast on the last day as it was when I could open program and pop right open. Whereas if I had stayed on the Windows system, assuming you could keep a Windows system around that long, for 7 years I think I was on Ubuntu. Yeah, at the end of that, your system will be operating so slowly and everything. And I'm not sure exactly why that happened, but because it's all closed source, you know, all the upgrading, all the upgrades you do and all that stuff slows down, bulks up the system, bolts the system more. Yeah, you got a bulk in there, and then it just slows. Every Windows system ever had, the more you used it, the longer it's had on the system, the slower everything got. It didn't have any options. It didn't have a slim Windows option, low memory option that you use if you are on a smaller, older computer, that kind of thing. Whereas you have a lot of options. Linux, you can install LXQT or LXDE, or you can install XFCE or Mate versions. All those are low memory footprints. If you really want to go low memory footprint, you can install Window Manager on there. I think like the Swedish that I did a little while ago. 200 and some megabytes of memory that they consumed out of 12 gigabytes memory. That's pretty low skeety footprint, I'd say. So yeah, so that's the main reason I installed it. It's kind of a compilation of all these reasons. Just kind of made you go, I could breathe again. Don't have to worry about your system bugging up, slowing down, and getting slower and slower and slower every year. Every time you ran Windows, it seemed like you get slower and slower. So yeah, that's why I switched to Linux. And if you have other reasons that you switch to Linux, put them down there. Or reasons why you don't switch to Linux, put them in the comment section. And hit the like button if you like the video, and unlike it if you don't like it. And also, if you have a mind to, subscribe, get a notification bell if you want to get notified when new videos come out. And may the Linux Force be with you. Till next time, bye.